Hey, how's it going? This is Ninja Monkey Video School. You're watching video number 2, Media Management. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how I set up my hard drives and how I back up my footage. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is the 3-2-1 backup system. I think this system is super important. It's an industry standard to back up data, not just in film, but in all industries. It's to keep everything as backed up as possible to make sure you don't lose anything. Now, the 3 basically stands for you want to have 3 copies of the media. 2 means that media should be in 2 different locations. And 1 means that the media should be at least in one place on the cloud. Now, the way that I kind of back up my stuff is a little bit of a variation of that. I obviously don't have 2 locations to back up all my media, so I rely a little bit more on the cloud. So I'll kind of show you how I set up my hard drives. I always have 2 copies of all original media on 2 separate hard drives. So that's not on just one hard drive, I have 2 copies. No, it has to be on 2 separate hard drives, just in case one hard drive breaks for whatever reason. I always pretty much tell anybody that asks, or anybody that I talk to about hard drives, that you pretty much want to pretty much rely that any hard drive will break at any time, that maybe with the next day when you turn on your computer, the hard drive may not work. So you want to make sure that you have everything backed up. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with wedding films. This is someone's most special day. It's a day that they've been waiting since they were very young to get married. So it's very important that you back up these files. So now to show you kind of how I do it, these are 2 different hard drives that I have set up here, and 2 different backups of the same wedding. Now, the way that I have my file names set up is that I have the date in the beginning, so I have the month, date, and then year at the end. Some people do a variation of this. They might do the year in the beginning. I've worked with companies that have many, like hundreds of videographers and hundreds of weddings in one year, and then they have hundreds of weddings in other years, so they keep everything it's a little bit more of an extensive process, so they'll put the year in the beginning instead of the month. Now for me, because I shoot about 20 weddings a year, it's fine for me to have the date in the beginning. And also I have much smaller hard drives than they do. They probably have RAIDs that can hold several years of weddings. My hard drives are a little bit smaller. Even my large hard drives can hold about, each wedding is about 250 gigabytes. So I could hold about like 20 maybe on one hard drive, maybe a little bit less. It really depends. You can see on this hard drive, this is what I'm filling up. I also use Drobos to hold a little bit more hard drive. These are RAIDs. So RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. So the Drobos that I use have 4 disks inside of them, 4 different hard drives. I can kind of show you how that's set up over here. Drobo has a kind of cool little dashboard that they use so you can manage all your hard drives. So I have 2 Drobos hooked up. You can see, we're not going to do an update right now. So you can see that this Drobo's capacity is 8 terabytes. This is 7 terabytes. When you go into here, you can see there are 4 hard drives, 3 terabyte hard drives and 1 4 terabyte hard drive. And you can kind of get an idea of how much I've used. Usually they say not to use more than 70%. The Drobos will kind of give you an idea when they start filling up too much, and you could replace these hard drives for larger capacity. Like you can see on this one, it's suggesting that I should replace this hard drive for a larger one. I'll eventually probably buy a 4 terabyte like I did for this one. I had a similar thing a couple months ago. So this basically allows me to hold a lot of different things on one hard drive. That's an option for media management. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is also when you're creating audio files. Creating external audio files is going to be a big part of your media management strategy. Let me kind of show you how I set up each of my weddings as far as the hard drive structure in the Finder. And so this is the main folder that has the date of the wedding, and it has the names of the bride and the groom. You can kind of see another one, the bride and the groom, the date of the wedding, and all of these. So when you go into there, I'll have 2 folders. One will have video and one will have audio. In the audio folder, I'll have all of my external audio. Now, in the beginning of each audio clip, it's very important to have, basically when you're starting the audio clip, after you press record, to name what you're recording. So each of these will have exactly what they are at the very beginning. I'll press record and say, this is the ceremony external audio for the groom. And then when I have another one for the external audio for the priest, I'll have external audio for the priest labeled right in the beginning. This is very important when you have hundreds of audio files. They'll all have pretty much the same names, Zoom 0008, Zoom 0009. You gotta basically, a lot of time, most of the time, I'll try to basically name all of these audio files. A lot of times I might be shooting a lot of weddings in a row and I didn't have a chance basically to name them, or also when I'm editing I'll name them. So you could probably see in a lot of these I'll have named them in the editing process. I'll name them. These are all different things. These are the ceremony podium, the priest, the reception backups, reception feed. Those are the reception feeds are coming from the DJ's board. They usually have an output on their board that allows you to plug in either an XLR or an auxiliary output, things like that. Basically, it could be an RCA as well, the red and the white cables. This would be the feed, so that's coming right from the DJ's board. That lets you get a really good audio of the microphones for the speeches, and it also lets you get like a good idea of what music they were playing. A lot of times they'll play the music too loud towards the end. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later, and how I deal with that kind of stuff. And you can see ceremony podium. Usually I'll place another microphone on the podium, so if anybody goes to speak on that podium, I'll have very good audio of that. Anybody doing any readings, things like that. These are things you pretty much have to have an idea of and have a lot of backups, because let's say if for whatever reason the priest's audio didn't come out that good, he's probably standing close to the podium for most of the ceremony, so I have good audio on the podium, and he's probably standing next to the groom for the rest of the ceremony, and I'll have good audio there. It's very important to have good backups. And in the editing, I'll also have an editing folder. The editing folder will kind of have all of my editing assets. I like to separate these into a separate folder. It'll basically have my pluralize assets. These are all the assets from when I'm syncing all the weddings, when I'm syncing the external audio that you're seeing here to all of the video clips. This is very important to keep all of this just in case you have to redo anything or anything like that. You have it all kind of backed up in a separate thing, separate folder, and you have everything just ready to go. And here I had to create DVDs, so I'll put DVDs in there, and that's what I had, the assets for the DVD. And then in the video folder, I'll separate it into the different cameras and in the different cards that I use. So I want to know each card that I used, I back it up, and I back up all of the contents of that card. So not just the video files that you see in the final folder. I want to have everything. I want to have all of these files. It'll also create little files in this private that I want to have, and obviously I want to have all the video files in here. And then I'll separate them by cards. I do that just so that I can keep a better track of everything, and just in case maybe if a memory card, it's never really happened to me, cross my fingers, but just in case for whatever reason you have an idea of which memory card went bad. And I always have my memory cards named by number as well. So I have them card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4, card 5, and I use certain ones for each camera. Now, and you can see for camera B will be a similar thing. I'm backing up everything. Now for a lot of the editing programs, you only need to have these last files, the MOVs or MP4s. It used to be that you would need all of these, the folder structure, so that in Final Cut 7 that was super important, so that it would be able to recognize everything and that everything would work with the editing program. Now that's a little less important, but I still back them up just in case it ever does become something that I do want to have. I always think it's very important to just grab everything. You don't want to miss anything. I mean, that's mainly how I back up all of my files. So I'll drag basically the memory card onto here, like I explained, and then I'll label everything by card and label everything by camera. You can see in this wedding, I used a drone, so I separate that into a separate folder. Now that's mainly what I wanted to talk about in this video. The next video that I'm going to have is going to be how to set up your editing library. So once you get into Final Cut Pro, how to set up everything and how I set up all of my folders and all of my keyword collections, basically to be able to edit and be able to be very efficient, be able to do notes quickly, and to be able to deliver a product in a timely manner. All right, so I'll see everybody next week. Have a good week. Bye.